Yo, what's good, my guy? We're back.
Yes,
Back.
yes. Getting ready for another week here, man. Atlanta. We're going to Atlanta, Georgia.
Sing it to him. Sing it to him, Ray Charles. Trey Charles. So, Red Friday for everybody out there listening. We're gearing up for the Atlanta Falcons Sunday night football, baby. Just a few things to discuss before we get into the preview of the game. I know we kind of hinted at it earlier this week. There were rumors flying around about, and we can just jump right into the news, Trey. If are you cool with that?
Yeah. I think I'll take that approach.
Cool. Love it. So, there were some rumors hinting around. Tom Pelissero, I think, was the first that I saw reported that Kareem Hunt was coming in for a visit. Well, as of Tuesday afternoon, the visit has been completed. Physical has been passed, and he is now a member of the Chiefs practice squad. Welcome back to Kansas City. Kareem Hunt put up 3 yards per carry last year, but when you couple that with I think it was right around 20 receptions and 9 total touchdowns, not bad for a guy who's going to be your RB2 kind of moving through the season. And this guy knows the system, right? He knows Andy Reid's system. He knows Matt Nagy's system even,
Yeah, maybe some
right?
of it. A lot's changed. It'll be interesting to see how that kind of, what's changed and how he integrates back into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's elements that will, but at least Andy Reid knows how to play to those guys' strengths, and he knows what he's got in
Oh,
Kareem Hunt. And if
100%.
if they're coming in and you know kicking the tires on him, they had to have seen something that they liked, at least enough to bring him onto the squad.
Yeah. Yeah. I had somebody at work today asking me, kind of what was the thought process there with Kareem Hunt? How do I feel he fits in? And I was listening a little bit to 96.5, The Fan. Carrington was talking about it and kind of what that role is going to be. And, I kind of want to agree. Actually, it was a guest on the show. I'm not sure who it was with Carrington, but talking about what the role is going to be for Kareem, kind of more of a third down back, a
Hmm.
third and one goal line kind of situation where I really feel like most of that's already covered with Carson Steele. And Carson Steele already plays quite a few snaps. So it will be interesting to see how Kareem Hunt integrates into that offense and with everyone assuming that Samaje Perine will be number one.
Interesting. Well, Kareem Hunt's not technically on the active roster yet, so I think that's something that needs to be accounted for sure. It's going to take probably a couple weeks before he gets geared up to be in game shape for him to occupy a roster spot. I think last time I looked, there are 3 open roster spots, so maybe that elevation takes place now
Yep.
after a week of evaluation and getting him in there. They play Sunday night, so they have they gain like a half a day
You're
of
right.
time where they can kind of maneuver those pieces. But to touch on the Carson Steele bit, right? Because that's interesting. They say whoever this guest was, I didn't tune in unfortunately, but it's interesting that person would come out and say that he's going to be the third down guy, because I definitely can see short yardage, because that was the scenario that generated those touchdowns for him. But he did not get any receiving touchdowns. So the fact he would be a third down back, knowing what we have in Samaje Perine and his skill set, I kind of saw it the opposite. And to speak to the Carson Steele portion of that, I think the last thing Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs want to do is put the bulk of the early down workload into a rookie's hands. Because while Carson Steele was getting a decent amount of snaps for for his role, I think on the other end he fumbled on the limited number of carries that he did have. And so there's some fundamental pieces that he still needs to hone in on and really just focus in on his craft. And to put that pressure on him so early in the career, I don't know if he's ready for that. So
Sure.
I do like the aspect of him kind of assuming some of those snaps, but still getting Steele an opportunity. I mean, it's very much going to be a committee situation.
Yeah, I agree, and I think there's I mean, really, it's kind of that situation, anyways, where we see three different backs come in several different times um, throughout the game, and kind of ends up being a conglomerate of running backs. And really, it's not limited to running backs, right? As we see the offense grow, as we always do with Andy Reid, we'll see different guys in the backfield who don't designate as a running back. So we could see more of that early on now, with the situation that we're in, flexing, different guys into the backfield to kind of switch things up and see kind of what different looks we're getting with that different style of offense. But I think that goes along with what we talked about earlier on this week with the offense shifting how it's going to perform and how it's going to play call, and a lot of that's going to end up on Patrick Mahomes. But
Yeah.
yeah, kind of an interesting pick up with Kareem Hunt. It's gonna be interesting to see how it plays out. I know I'm excited to see him back in Kansas City.
Yeah, I think he'll gel with these guys again right off the battle. There's actually a decent amount of continuity on the team from when he was last with them from 2018. So I don't see that being a problem. To see him suit up this Sunday, I think would be the biggest shock out of the situation. But going into the following week, what is it? The Chargers that the Chiefs play the following week.
So, yeah.
Seeing Kareem Hunt suit up for that game, I think, would be a little more feasible, just given the timetable and everything. But yeah, welcome back. I don't know what number he's going to wear, but welcome back to Kansas City, Kareem Hunt. Real quick, we did bring back. So you remember that tight end that was not suited up for the Ravens game, pushed Roquan Smith on the sideline?
What's that? Say that one more time.
You remember that tight end that suited up, or did not suit up rather, for the Ravens game, pushed Roquan Smith on the sideline?
Yeah, I didn't see that one live, and honestly, I didn't see the replay or a clip from that until this week.
So he, as any offensive player would, kind of came to the aid of Patrick Mahomes because I guess it did look like he hit him in the white. I mean, that was pretty apparent. No flag gets called, but he goes to the defense of Patrick Mahomes in that moment. Well, players and personnel who are not active or suited up cannot get involved in the game whatsoever. So the NFL handed down some fines. I think Hendershot's fine. Peyton Hendershot is the tight end's name. He ended up getting about $5,000 in fines, but the organization itself got fined $100K. Because at the end of the day, they're responsible for the people on the sidelines, and I think they're putting an emphasis on this because of the scenario with Philadelphia last year. And
Yep.
I forget the security guy's name, but he's got
Don.
Don, thank you.
Don.
With his situation, I think they're trying to emphasize this, like, hey, we don't want these guys out here, getting involved in the flow of the game in any way. So Chiefs got slapped with a big old fine, and they ended up cutting him. And I was like, damn, he comes to the aid of Patrick Mahomes, doesn't really get an opportunity to play too much, and then gets the axe. But they did bring him back to the practice squad. But $100K, that's the part of it I think is the most shocking to me. I didn't realize the league would be handing down such stiff penalties, which $100K is a drop in the bucket for the Chiefs. But that's wild.
Yeah, that's a pretty substantial fine there. Honestly, for pretty minimal contact. But again, I think they're trying to set a precedence here, set a standard. But kind of along those lines, the new standard in the NFL, Dan, the Chiefs have, I think we felt this after the Super Bowl, this last Super Bowl, back to back. We are now the most loved and the most hated team in the NFL by far. There's no question about that.
I mean, if there's anything social media has told you over the last not even just the last few weeks with, people crying about the refs in either of the games, but it's really been something where people can't put the tissues down about any game the Chiefs are involved in. And I don't know if it's because they capitalize on those situations when they get flags, or if it's just kind of like what we saw with the Patriots for so many years.
Right.
But there was a recent study that saw the Chiefs surpass the Cowboys, and they ran some sort of algorithm on social media. You know how they can source those things, with just common phrasing that would equal to "I hate the Chiefs." And the Chiefs surpassed the Dallas Cowboys. It's something that any team has not been able to do in a while. I'm sure Bryce still hates the Cowboys more, our producer, but basically, the Chiefs are the most hated team.
Yeah, and I think as success brings the haters along. I don't know if that's a quote somewhere, but you can quote me here. But I
think it's a Trey original.
Success just brings along a lot of attention, good and bad. And personally, I will take all of the success I can get if it means the rest of the country hates the Chiefs, because I do not give a damn what people who are not Chiefs fans think about the Chiefs.
I mean, drop the mic on that. I think that's the bottom line. They would switch places with us in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Any fan 100%. That is not a part of the Chiefs for this success, they would switch places in a heartbeat. You know what? If it comes out that there is some sort of favoritism towards the Chiefs or whatever, I don't give a shit. We got Super Bowls and championships out of the deal. You ask the Patriots fans what they think about Spygate or whatever, they'll say the same thing. I guarantee
100%.
But
100%.
That's tinfoil stuff. That's tinfoil hat stuff. Those guys were actually cheating. The difference here is the way the Chiefs can capitalize on the mistakes that other teams make. It's totally different. It's totally different from the way any other. There are multiple scenarios in NFL games every single weekend that a flag will get thrown in a critical moment, and if the team that gets the call does nothing, then it doesn't matter.
Right.
The Chiefs, they win. They're winners.
Yep. And you said it earlier this week, if the Bengals have the game put away 24-17 or whatever it may be, that pass interference happens at the end of the game, that's a completely different game. We have to go down and score instead of kick that field goal at the end. So, and at the end of the day, every team is in complete control of how they perform. And you don't win Super Bowls on penalties, right? You got there for a reason. You had to win several games in the postseason, obviously, to get there. And then you had to have a great regular season as well. So it's not just a walk in the park to get to the Super Bowl and win back-to-back, and those were for sure earned.
It's been over 500 days since another team has been able to call themselves a Super Bowl champion, not named the Kansas City Chiefs. I think people are going to get jaded in that time frame.
Yeah,
going to get
I would be too.
frustrated.
I would be too. Yep.
Well, let's just be the villains, man. I think that's the way the Chiefs need to roll with it. Chiefs fans need to roll with it. Just be the villains. Kind of feels good. Kind of feels good. It's funny. We actually have a coworker in our office who is a Bengals fan. And he came in, and the whole day, no one's saying a word. We get to about 2-3 o'clock, and he goes, "You know what? I'm surprised that no one has really talked any shit to me or said anything." And all my boss said was, "Well, it was expected."
That's the worst thing anyone could have said to him.
What are we supposed to do if that's what the outcome was expected? What are we supposed to say?
What a dagger.
It was like, okay, I'll just stop now.
Yeah. All right, gotta go. Got a meeting.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna put in some hours. All right, man. Let's jump into this game. Let's talk about the Falcons. Honestly, this is turning into kind of not quite like two playoff contenders going at it necessarily. I'm not ready to slap that label on the Falcons just quite yet. But this team is going to be competitive.
Oh yeah.
So I'm a little curious to see how the injuries are going to play into this situation, right? How the Chiefs can adjust the personnel in that scenario. But no Pacheco, obviously, no Hollywood Brown. Everyone else relatively healthy outside of Justin Reed. I think he like broke a finger and had another hand injury that he was asked about at the end of the game on Sunday. But other than that, the team is relatively healthy, all things considered, 2.5 weeks into the season. But there's a couple key playmakers that the Chiefs are going to be without, namely Pacheco, who, shouldered a lot of the load in the first two games.
Yeah, agreed. And I think, outside of injuries here, the Falcons looking pretty clean on the injury report. But outside of injuries, it's going to be interesting to see, and this will kind of run us right into what the Chiefs need to do to win. But it'll be interesting to see kind of what the play at left tackle looks like as well. I know that's going to be a focus for the Chiefs, but with the rookie getting pulled in the third quarter, been a lot of conversation in Kansas City about that throughout the week so far on where that mindset was from Coach Reed, what the future looks like, and what that. It's fair to say at this point, we wrapped up the conversation about competition at left tackle pretty early on in August. And it's fair to say at this point that competition is neck and neck, fair and square. Who's going to get that start and who's going to sustain that starter status going into the game. But the O-line play has to elevate compared to what we saw last week, especially on the edges.
No, absolutely. It's definitely opened back up. Now is Wanya Morris going to be that guy? Do we go back out and grab somebody? I know there's been rumblings of like, what's Donovan Smith doing while we're kicking the tires on former Chiefs? What's going on over there? But no, 100%. I think, the hope in this scenario would be that it's a wake-up call for Suamataia, and he comes back out and he tightens up a few things. If anyone's going to get the most out of him, we said this all summer, if anyone can get the most out of these guys, it's Andy Heck and what he can do with those offensive linemen, turning late-round picks into perennial all-pros. So, I'm hoping that's the scenario. The Falcons, not a great defensive line, all things considered. It was talked about multiple times on the Manning cast. If you watch the Monday night game, I mean, Jalen Hurts had all damn day to throw. Now, we're talking about the Eagles' offensive line, of course.
Yep.
That is probably top to bottom a top 2-3 offensive line in the league. But on the same side of things, I mean, Jalen Hurts was back there basically setting up camp, cooking s'mores before he had to make any decisions on what he had to do. So, minimal threat, I would say, from a pass rush standpoint, miles away from what the Chiefs saw against Cincinnati and against Baltimore.
Yeah, and just to tack onto that real quick before we head on to the rest of the Chiefs, what they need to do to win. Looking into the future a little bit, we still have to play the Chargers twice. Hell of a pass rush coming out of LA. We still have to play Vegas twice. Hell of a pass rush coming out of Vegas. And so it's not just about what's going to happen this weekend, right? We need sustained success from that left tackle position and the right tackle position for the whole season, because it's not getting any easier just because we're playing Atlanta this weekend. So I know that's a thought up at One Arrowhead Drive, and something that's got to be hammered out this weekend so we can move on and try to get prepared for the future as well.
So just getting back to some of the things the Chiefs need to focus on to get this win out there in Atlanta, it's the turnovers. I mean, it's becoming a trend. Patrick Mahomes, way uncharacteristic for September football from him. Yep. In the terms of the number of interceptions. There's been a couple of fumbles. We have not been winning the turnover battle. The defense, we talked about earlier this week too, not really a high turnover generating defense. It's more bend, don't break. It's more sack the quarterback, get you into some tough situations that way. But in terms of the turnover side of things, the Chiefs just need to tighten up, man. I mean, it's been frustrating. It's actually something that plagued the offense last year as well, with the drop passes, the tips, the fumbles, luckily, I'm a knock on wood, we haven't seen any special teams turnovers on punt or kick returns, because those things have killed the Chiefs in the past too. But this is something that does not need to become a trend. And so if they're going to take care of business in Atlanta, which has the makings of a trap game, it can't be a situation where they're turning over the ball or losing the turnover battle to them.
Yeah, I agree. And we addressed it earlier this week, but turnovers kill teams, right? And if that trend does continue throughout the season, it will catch up to the Chiefs. We won't be able to squeeze every game out in the last 4 seconds of the game. And you have to come out positive there. But it really comes down to flipping the field for the other team. And like you said, we do a great job of putting teams in difficult situations where it makes success for our defense that much more easier. Where if you do that to the defense, continuously give the ball to the other team in our territory, it's gonna really make that very difficult for them to continue that success. But on top of that, I think for another area of success for the Chiefs is it has to be the pass game has got to be improved, and if that means the play calling shifts or we get different guys involved or whatever it may be, I think the run game is involved in that and getting the pass game started, obviously, but the pass game has got to be efficient. We've seen the first 2 weeks at this point where we've hit a couple deep balls. That doesn't have to be necessarily a priority. I think there's a lot of expectation going into the season that was going to be what this Chiefs team is going to do. And so far it's been successful, but in between those big pass plays is really kind of mundane football and not a lot of, hey, let's drive it down for 17 plays and drop it in after 11-minute drive, right? And I think more efficiency out of the offensive pass game is going to be crucial for a win this weekend.
Well, I think to piggyback on that too, right? Pacheco was kind of filling the void in those areas where the Chiefs couldn't get things going in those other downs, where they weren't hitting somebody deep or hitting Rice on a slant or what have you. So the passing game really is going to have to evolve from that absence, right? And we've seen it happen before where Chiefs opt to, instead of being run heavy, right, in those leaner years in the running back room, kind of pre-Pacheco, post-Hunt, where they were kind of working committees, it was heavy screens, right? Heavy screens when we wanted those short down, conversions, those 3rd and 1s, those 2nd and 3s, those kinds of things where normally you're handing the ball off to a running back. They're working some sort of a screen in there. Now, the flip side of that, if you're going to implement that side of the game, you got to watch out for the illegal man downfield penalties. Make sure no one's holding in those scenarios. That can be a little more difficult to seal that edge on those screens when it's a receiver kind of, or a tight end even blocking instead of a guard or a tackle pulling to go take care of that. So those are things that concern me a little bit, just how disciplined these guys are going to be, since that hasn't really been a component of the offense up to this point. Because I think you're right. I think everyone was expecting it to be the high-flying 2018 offense with all of these offensive weapons catching passes, but that really hasn't been the case. And I don't know if it's because Hollywood Brown hasn't been on the field or what the situation is there, but or they're gearing worthy yet. But they kind of took a little turn off of what people were expecting, which I don't know, that makes me happy. I think that keeps defenses rather guessing on what these guys are going to do. So,
Agreed.
Hey, it is what it is. On the flip side of things for defense, I think they just need to make sure they limit Drake London, who had a great game against Philadelphia, and limit Bijan Robinson. Now, I think Philly did a good job of limiting Bijan in that game. Tyler Algier maybe had a better game than him, but those are two guys that I think if the defense is able to key in on those, make somebody like Kyle Pitts overperform what his norm is, then we'll be in a position where it's not going to be too much of a sweat fest.
Yeah, but agreed. I think a lot of it kind of go back to another point that you made earlier about the pressure from the defense. I think bringing that pressure and having a constant hand on Kirk Cousins will elevate that and give us that much more opportunity to make those plays against those guys. Kirk has shown in the past, you continuously put hands on him, and that's going to change the game a little bit for him and really end up changing the playing call to a three-step drop instead of letting him kind of sit back there and try to heave him over the top, because he's got that ability, right? And so you don't want to give him that opportunity, and we have the perfect defense to do that against.
No, absolutely. We're a sack defense. We're a pressure defense. It's the things that Spags does to disguise it. It's the hard-working, high-motor guys that Brett Veach loves to draft and put on the defensive line. And then, of course, it's Chris Jones, who has probably one of the most unique skill sets of any defensive tackle in the NFL. So, I mean, all of those elements combined are just a recipe to make a quarterback uncomfortable. Now, what do the Falcons have to do to keep up their momentum? Because all of a sudden, the NFC became this, the NFC South, rather, became the best teams in the division, right? And the Chiefs happen to be playing all of those teams this year with the way the schedule rotates. Falcons beating the Eagles. Saints, they've been the most high-powered offense over the last 2 weeks, taking down, both teams in that time frame. And the Buccaneers just took down the NFC Championship game appearance Lions. So I mean, those are all teams that going into the season, I think I had it marked up as a W on all four of those, where it's like, an afterthought. But now these guys are starting to pick up like they're going to be a little bit of a concern. And I think the Falcons in particular, I said it earlier, have that trap game sort of, they know they're the underdog. They're hosting the Chiefs. Yep. They're coming off of a big win against Philadelphia, and they have a quarterback who can get it done. Now, Kirk Cousins, historically not great in prime time. I think everybody knows that by now. But, if these guys are able to get the crowd involved, Atlanta can get loud. Those fans can really get things picked up. So, I mean, if they are able to get things working with Bijan Robinson, if Kirk Cousins is back there running the offense the way that he ran it during that 2-minute drill against Philly to get the W, then that crowd is going to get into this freaking game and into it in a hurry, which would really give us a situation, or give the Chiefs a situation, rather, where they're fighting that crowd noise. I think Mahomes thrives in that environment a little bit.
Agreed. Plays better on the road.
But, if they can really get things going on offense, give that crowd a reason not to leave early, then they'll at least have a fighting chance to keep that momentum going.
Agreed. Yeah, it's going to be honestly, I think it's going to be a pretty high scoring game. But on top of that, the couple things that you said there, I think it's important for the Falcons to get up early and stay up early. We saw last week with the Bengals where we kind of chased them until the third quarter, our first touchdown or the first score of the second half there. We were chasing the Bengals the whole first half. And if the Falcons can do that and really hammer the run game with Robinson, I think that's going to really put the pressure on the offense to be successful every drive, right? If they can hammer out some long sustained drives where the offense is sitting on the sideline, we're watching the defense for most of the game. This could turn into a time of possession game, and really that rolls into your turnovers as well. If they can force those turnovers for the Chiefs from a defensive standpoint on the Falcons, where they are, maybe they don't score the drive before, but they force that interception or force that fumble the next drive, and the defense is right back on the field and trying to manage that from a short field or from another long sustained drive. That's how you're going to drain this Chiefs team down to nothing and really hamstring the defense in the fourth quarter.
No, absolutely. And, it's up to the Chiefs to make sure that they don't let that momentum pick up, because some people don't believe in that. But if you give the Falcons an opportunity to turn this into a time of possession game and they build that momentum up through Bijan Robinson, through Tyler Algier, who, if just remind you, was a 1,000-yard rusher a couple seasons ago himself, then it could be in a situation where it's whoever has the ball last is the one who's going to win, because they're just milking the clock. And that is just a situation that the Chiefs cannot turn this into. Falcons as a whole, They have a pretty solid offensive line, and knowing that they have the backs to facilitate a game like that, the running backs rather, that is something that I mean, it's got to be on top of the list for Spagnuolo.
Yep, agreed. Agreed.
So let's do some quick picks before we wrap up the show, my man. The Chiefs, currently as it stands, as we're recording, are 4.5-point favorites in Atlanta. The total on this game, 46.5 points. I know you said high scoring. I think we both agree on that, right?
Yes, sir. Yep. I like the over here. I think it ends up, there's going to be a team in the 30s and a team probably in the high 20s. I think this one goes, it's a shootout, not necessarily to the end, but I think it is going to be an offensive game here. Obviously the Chiefs team doesn't give up. We have that one game a year where we kind of fumble the bag the whole game and don't look great, but I don't think we see that in this game. I think the Chiefs offense performs. We're pretty resilient when it comes to injuries and setbacks and things like that. So I expect the offense to come out with a very solid plan and be able to come out and execute and be able to facilitate those injuries. But I got the Chiefs on the over, and I got the Chiefs and minus 4.5. I'm taking the Chiefs there. I think we win by a touchdown at least here.
No, I totally agree. I like the Chiefs on the cover. I like the over. I'm going 34-23 Chiefs, 11-point win in this one.
Right.
High scoring for sure. I think it's, we've seen it historically with primetime games. You're not getting a ton of scoring. Really, I think that's going to be the opposite here, where these offenses kind of blow up a little bit. So yeah, 34-23 Chiefs, baby.
I'll take that all day, baby.
We love it. We love it. Well, appreciate everybody listening. Make sure you follow the show at the fastest_40 on X, IG. Shout out to our partners at Odyssey Sports. It's been a fun season so far, and we're just getting started. You can check us out on YouTube as well on the Odyssey Sports page, where we're dropping the videos for these episodes, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff. I'm ready for a dub. Happy Red Friday to all of Chiefs Kingdom. Let's get to Sunday night.
Let's get it. Go Chiefs.